Ukraine's President Zelensky has warned that Russia is amassing tens of thousands of troops on its border as it launches a new offensive to capture more territory in eastern Ukraine. He was speaking on a visit to Germany, where the new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said his country would help Ukraine develop new long-range missiles. Well, Russia has stepped up its assaults on front lines in Sumy, Kharkiv and Donetsk. Its forces have made the most significant advances since January around Donetsk in what's being seen as the start of a summer offensive. President Trump said earlier it'll become clear in the next week whether Russia wants to end the war. Moscow's foreign minister said tonight it's proposing new peace talks with Ukraine next week in Istanbul. We'll hear more shortly about President Zelensky's visit to Germany. But first, our correspondent Yogita Limaye has been on Ukraine's eastern front line with camera operator Sanjay Ganguly and producer Imogen Anderson. They sent this report.
The aftermath of Russia's vicious onslaught over the past few days is visible across Ukraine, but especially here in towns just behind the front lines. This is Rodynske, north of the embattled city of Pokrovsk. A glide bomb ripped through the town's main administrative building and 3 apartment blocks. From the edges, we can hear artillery fire and outgoing gunfire from Ukrainian soldiers shooting at drones.
Just in the past 2-3 weeks, things have changed on this front. The most significant advance that Russia has possibly made since the start of January. Many believe this is the start of the summer offensive to take.
We hear a Russian drone and then another one making impact. We run to the closest cover, a tree. Above us, the drone continues to hover. The terrifying whirring sound of what's become the deadliest weapon of this war.
Stay or come? Come. We've just run to safety inside a house here in Rodynske. We actually saw a drone that was moving at really high speed, and we can still hear gunshot sounds, potentially drones being shot down. You can really see and feel the Russian advance here in the Donetsk region. It's changed, I would say, just in the past 2-3 weeks that we have been here.
This is what it's like every minute for soldiers fighting this war. About half an hour later, when it's safe to leave, we speed out. By the side of the road, what is likely a downed drone. In a town further away from the front line, we see a row of homes destroyed by a missile overnight. Bilitsky is now increasingly being hit, its residents exhausted. Alexander now forced to decide whether to stay or leave. I wish it would stop. No one needs this war. I've had enough, he says. But the diplomatic momentum to get the war to stop seems to have hit a dead end. And Ukraine is working to ramp up its arsenal, big and small. A soldier with the call sign moderator is building the latest weapon to hit this war zone, a fiber optic drone. A spool with tens of kilometers of cable is fitted to the bottom of the drone. Fine and sturdy, the fiber optic cord is then physically attached to the controller that's held by the pilot.
It's really important because on our front line, the enemy has a lot of electronic interceptors, which jam all the frequencies, so we can't fly our usual drones.
Ukraine is playing a game of catch-up deploying fiber optic devices. Russia started using them months before Ukraine, the soldiers tell us. The chilling impact of rapidly changing technology can be seen in this recent video from the Eastern Front. A Russian drone chases an armoured vehicle carrying Ukrainian soldiers. The jammers on the top could have neutralized normal drones, but not a fiber optic one. It flies straight through the back door and explodes. Transporting soldiers to and from the front is often deadlier than the battlefield. At a safe house just out of reach of drones, we meet Serhiy, who works in a mortar unit.
The terrain is flat, so there is nowhere to hide. And right now you can feel the intensity of Russia's assaults growing stronger.
The men prepare to deploy to their positions. As the war enters a fourth summer, most of the soldiers we meet are those who've joined after the full-scale invasion began. Maxim worked in a drinks company. Now he's at the very front of Ukraine's defense.
There are times I've spent 30 days in my position. There was one instance when we didn't sleep for 3 days because the Russians kept coming at us wave after wave.
I ask how his family copes with his job.
It's very hard.
A soldier fighting for his country, but also just a father missing his 2-year-old boy. Yogita, Limaye, BBC News, Eastern Ukraine.
Well, as we mentioned, Germany has offered more support to Ukraine. During a meeting with President Zelensky in Berlin, Chancellor Friedrich Merz announced his country would help Kyiv develop its own long-range missiles. As Jessica Parker reports from Berlin.
President Zelensky's been here before, but never to be greeted by this man, Germany's new Chancellor, who's outspoken in his backing for Kyiv and in his criticism of Moscow. This is President Zelensky's first visit to Berlin since Friedrich Merz took office. The new Chancellor is promising to make Germany a more assertive player when it comes to European defence and security. There was no long-awaited public pledge to supply Kyiv with Germany's powerful Taurus missiles, but a plan instead for Berlin to help Ukraine make long-range weapons.
There will be no range restrictions, allowing Ukraine to fully defend itself, even against military targets outside its own territory.
The details are unclear, but the Kremlin accused Berlin of being irresponsible. President Zelensky accused Moscow of stalling on peace talks.
The issue lies solely with Putin, with their constant postponements. They keep looking for reasons to delay any format that could end the war.
Russia then claimed it's ready for fresh talks. As in the US, Donald Trump said he's waiting to see if President Putin is serious.
Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently, but it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
In Berlin, they stood for the Ukrainian national anthem. Chancellor Merz has warned that fighting between Ukraine and Russia could yet drag on. There may be talk of peace, but there's preparation too for a protracted war. Jessica Parker, BBC News in Berlin.
Well, let's talk to our Ukraine correspondent, James Waterhouse. Sergei Lavrov, as we mentioned, suggesting there might be talks next week in Istanbul. James, I mean, does that really seem likely given everything we are witnessing on the ground?
Jane, we may well could see further talks, but we've been talking about talks for 3 months now with no concrete outcome. You heard those German warnings there of the war dragging on, and that is because of the perpetual cycle Ukraine finds itself in. Zelensky went to Berlin, where there was talk of Germany directly supplying missiles. The details of what has come out of that in terms of Germany helping Ukraine manufacture cruise missiles down the line, it's all vague. How Europe steps up without America, either during this war or after a ceasefire is signed, is still not clear. Then you have America. Once, a couple of days ago, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was playing with fire with his sustained drone attacks and refusals to engage on a meaningful level in these peace talks. But we don't yet know what that means. And as you saw in Yogita's report there, the front lines, where you have Russia using familiar tactics to push forward, depopulise frontline settlements, and weaken Ukraine's position at a potential peace negotiation down the line. The benefits for Moscow are seen as outweighing the risks of antagonising Washington if these ceasefire efforts are further delayed.
James, thank you. James Waterhouse.